Okay, buenos dias, clase. I am going to make some videos to try and talk about some of these things that you're learning about in the book a little bit, in an effort to help you better understand. This chapter, chapter 7, for the grammar that some of you turned in, but some of you are still struggling a little bit with. I won't name names, but I have gotten some emails saying I don't understand. So we'll talk about it a little bit. The first part here on page 210, on page 210 is verbos de cambio radical a ie en el presente. So what these are stem changing verbs. And what's going to happen here is when you conjugate it, you're going to conjugate it like you normally do, but part of the verb is going to change a little bit as you go through. So you can see here, we have a whole list of verbs: empezar, comenzar, querer, perder, preferir. All of these verbs and others in this chapter are going to be stem changing verbs. There's nothing hard or complicated about this. We're still going to change them or conjugate them normally. If you look down here, there's an o, as, a, amos, ais, an, right? These are the same endings we've always had on these verbs before. But the e, because these are E to IE stem changing verbs. E to IE. So the E's in all of these, like this one, empezar, comenzar, querer, perder, these all have E's in the middle of the verb, right? So that E, this E in empezar, this E in querer, this E in preferir, this E in preferir, are going to change. So the E is going to change to, well, I wonder what. Since these are E to IE stem changing verbs, the E is going to change to an IE. So when you would conjugate empezar normally, you take off this AR here, and you'd put on an O or an AS or an A. And so you'd have empezo, E-M-P-E-Z-O. Since it's a stem changing verb, the E changes to an IE, so it's E-M-P-I-E-Z-O. So empiezo, empiezas, empieza. And this happens for all of them except for the nosotros, for we, or the vosotros, which we don't use much. It's the you all in Spain, the same as ustedes. So it happens for all of those except those two. Here it's empezamos. This E did not change into an IE. So make sure you're paying attention that if it's we, it doesn't change to IE. If it's any of the other ones, the E will change to an IE. If it's an E to IE stem changing verb. Now people always ask, well, how do I know if it's an E to IE stem changing verb? And really there's no good answer. It's just some verbs are, and you have to memorize which ones they are. Now, for our purposes, if it's on a test or something, if we were having actual tests like we normally do, I would tell you, yeah, that's a stem changing verb, or no, that's not a stem changing verb. And you could assume that most of the verbs on a test would be stem changing verbs. I'm not interested in you knowing which ones are and which ones aren't right now. Eventually with practice you'll kind of remember. I'm more interested that you actually know how to change a stem changing verb and recognize them when you see them and say, hey, why is that one weird in the middle? Well, because it's a stem changing verb. So the three that they give us examples of here are empezar, querer, preferir. This is to begin, to want, and to prefer. We're going to review to want over and over and over again every single time we have vocab, because you guys always seem to forget it. So that's one we're going to go over a lot. Don't forget that one. And here they all are all conjugated for you. But verbs that they didn't do, like perder, would work the exact same way. For the yo form, it would be pierdo. The E would change to an IE. Then it would be pierdes, pierde, and it's an ER verb, so it has E's. Perdemos, in the we form, it would not change to an IE. And then pierdan for they and you all, for ellos, ellas, ustedes. Okay, that's how that works. The little number 2 part here, this part here, number 2, all this is saying is these three verbs, empezar, comenzar, querer, preferir, those 4, I said 3, oftentimes will have another verb after them, like in this sentence, ellos quieren ir al gimnasio. Or porque prefieres jugar al fútbol. There's prefieres with another verb. There's quieren with another verb. Whenever you have 2 verbs in a row, like happens here, almost always you do not conjugate the second verb. When 2 verbs are in a row like this, don't conjugate the second verb. Leave it in the infinitive. It's not voy or vas or va. It's not juego or juegas or juegue. It's the infinitives of those. That's all that's saying there. Okay, on this page, 213, we have the verbos de cambio radical o a ue. So those are o to ue stem changing verbs. And we have a bunch of these in this chapter too. Volver, devolver, which basically the same thing with just de in front. Poder, dormir, and there's some others too. These will be exactly the same as the e to ie stem changing verbs, only this time an o is going to change to a ue. And you'll see all of these verbs, volver, devolver, poder, dormir, all have an O in them, and that O will change to a UE, but only in the yo, tú, él, usted, where these yellow highlights are, not in the nosotros and vosotros, where you don't see yellow highlights. Those O's stay as O's. They don't change to a UE. So one you're familiar with here, poder, that some of you people use almost every day in the classroom with puedo ir al baño, is one you're familiar with. It's poder there. So it's puedo, puedes, puede, podemos, and then pueden. It's not podo, which you'd think it would be, because it'd be P-O-D, and then you take off this ER and put on an O. Nope, that O needs to change to a UE first. These are stem changing verbs. The other one they're going to talk about in this chapter is jugar, which is this number 2 here, right here. Jugar is a U to UE stem changing verb. It's the only one of its kind, but it's just like the other ones, only the U in jugar changes to a UE, which you can see here, 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 and here. The U changing to a UE. Okay. The last thing we need to talk about in this chapter is interesar, aburrir, and gustar. Now, these interesar and aburrir work just like you'd expect them to interest and to bore. That's what they mean in Spanish. And they work just like you'd expect them to in English. Gustar works the same as they do, but since we say things a bit differently in English, it can be a bit confusing. Let's start with interesar and aburrir, though, in number 1. So what happens here is you're using to interest and to bore. So you're saying things interest you and things bore you. So we're going to have 2 pronouns, this te and then this me. Me and te. That's you and me. And the verb aburrir or interesar is going to be conjugated for the thing that's doing the interesting, like art interests me, cows interest me, sports interest me, dogs interest me. That is how you're going to conjugate this for either it or they. So it's always going to be third person. It'll always have an E or an EN or an A or an AN at the end. You'll never conjugate this for right now with an O or an amos or an anything else. It'll always be E or EN, A or AN for ER or AR verbs. So this first one, te aburre el arte. That's does art bore you? And this is aburre because it's being conjugated for art. Does art bore, and then te is you. And the answer is no, arte me interesa. Interest. It interests. The art interest. That's why it's interesa, not intereso or interesas. It's not you interest or I interest. It's the art interest. So the art interests me. Me interesa. Well, what if you have something that's not singular? Because arte is singular. What if you have deportes, this word here, that is plural? Deportes, then you're going to have to change the verb to aburren instead of aburre. This one's aburren because it's they bore me. It's actually the question, do sports bore you? And so since it's deportes, which is plural, aburren needs to be plural too for they, aburren. And the same with interesa. It will now be interesan since we're talking about deportes. So me interesan is they interest me. Now, gustar, the next thing we're going to talk about in number 2, works the exact same way. But since gustar means to please, we get confused. Because what we want to say is like I like soccer. I like whatever. I like to eat. I like baseball. I like whatever it is that you happen to like. That's how we say it in English. In Spanish, you don't say it that way. They don't say I like. Instead, they say this thing pleases me. conjugating it as if it were for I or you. You conjugate for the thing that you like, the thing that pleases you. So the examples here. The first one is, ¿Te gusta el béisbol? Which is a question. Gusta is conjugated as gusta instead of gusto, gustas. You're not ever going to do that. It's gusta because it's baseball pleases you. So does baseball please you? And you say, ah, yes, me gusta mucho. It pleases, meaning baseball, me. You're going to be choosing between this gusta or this one below, gustan, for one thing or more than one thing. For example, they have deportes. And since this is te gustan deportes, and this one was te gusta baseball, the only difference between these two sentences is the thing that's doing the pleasing, right? Do sports please you? Does baseball please you? And then the verb, which has to change for the thing that's doing the pleasing. Gustan or gusta. And then in the answer, the same thing. Me gustan mucho. I like them a lot. Sports. Or they please me a lot is literally what it says. And that's why it's gustan, because it's the sports. You don't conjugate gustan for I, even though we would say I like. You don't conjugate it for I. You conjugate it for the sports. Lots of times, this number 3 thing here, you're going to use a verb after gustar. In that case, you don't ever conjugate that second verb. Gusta, jugar, gusta, comer. So, te gusta jugar? Do you like to play? Te gusta comer? Do you like to eat? Si, me gusta jugar. And you don't conjugate this second verb. I like to play. I like to eat. But it literally means, remember, we're conjugating this as gusta instead of gusto, even though we're saying I like in English. It literally means to play pleases me, to eat pleases me. Okay, I'm pretty sure that is the end of things for our chapter now. Yep, that's going to do it. Hasta luego.